substances and pose a significant risk, especially to young children. In these cases, it appears that certain fruits have been contaminated, resulting in serious health consequences, and as we have seen in certain instances, death of small children. As a Minister of Basic Education, learner safety is my top priority, and so we are taking this matter extremely seriously. I want to urge communities, parents, vendors to exercise extreme caution when handling, storing, and selling pesticides, particularly those that contain harmful chemicals. The proper handling of pesticides is not just a matter of regulatory compliance, but it's also to ensure that our children are safe in their environments where they learn, where they play, and where they grow. In response to these incidents, my department is working with the Department of Health to develop safety guidelines for schools on how to best mitigate the risk of organophosphate pesticides entering school environments. These will be aimed at ensuring that communities and vendors near schools are aware of the risks associated with hazardous chemicals, especially those used for pest control purposes. I will ensure that these are finalized with my colleague, the Minister of Health, as soon as possible. I will also be exploring all legal avenues within basic education context to ban these pesticides and insecticides from entering into our school environment. It is my view that no school should be permitted to store or use these dangerous chemicals on its premises. Our objective is to create a safe environment for all our learners. And so lastly, I want to address the issue around the G20 Education Working Group. I'm proud to share the details of the recent visit to Fortaleza in Brazil, where we accepted the handover of the 2025 presidency of the G20 Education Working Group on behalf of South Africa. It is a historic moment for our nation, as it will be the first time that the G20 is not only hosted is hosted on the continent. The G20 Education Working Group is a powerful platform for collaboration, bringing together some of the world's leading economies to address the pressing issues of education today. And so under our presidency, we will focus on educational professionals for solidarity, equality, and sustainable development. This reflects our commitment to advancing education in a way that supports economic growth, social equity, and future-ready workforce. These priorities include quality foundational learning, which is going to be a key focus for us for the 2025 G20 Education Working Group, and also ensuring that our teachers and education professionals are equipped to meet the needs of a rapidly changing world. And we want to use our partners and our guests in the G20 to make sure that we leverage those. Our presidency will also emphasize the importance of preparing our young people with the skills that is needed for now, using artificial intelligence, large language models, robotics, and other emerging technologies. In an era that is defined by rapid technological change, it is essential that education systems adapt, evolve, and equip learners with relevant future-ready skills. And so through this G20 platform, we'll be ensuring that we do exactly that. In conclusion, I want to reiterate the Department of Basic Education's commitment to a safe, inclusive, and progressive education system for every learner in South Africa. Our NSC exams are well underway. As I indicated, we are now more than halfway through the system. We are focused on maintaining the integrity while responding proactively to any operational changes. As I indicated, the system is designed such that it's able to respond to challenges as they emerge, but also quickly resolve issues before they start to undermine the integrity of the exams. We've also had to make sure that we are proactively responding to including weather challenges around the country. We are steadfast in our support for learners who are affected by tragic accidents and incidents, and we will continue providing them with psychosocial support as and when they need. Furthermore, we are addressing the issue of food safety with urgency and working with the Minister of Health to make sure that we are regulating the ban on the hazardous pesticides from school premises to protect our children. And of course, while we may not be able to protect children from outside the school, I think it's quite important that as a department we make sure that we are in future making sure that these hazardous pesticides are not found on any of the premises in the school. And of course, we've been able to ascertain that many of the much of what has been going on in the food poisoning has not emanated from our school nutrition program. But of course, we are deeply, deeply concerned about the snacks and other food stuff that are contaminated, that are finding their way into school premises. And so this is why we are playing an active role with the group that the Minister of Health has convened in order to make sure that our learners, particularly young children who are more vulnerable here, are protected. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Minister. I thought you were going to ask this was the budget to go straight to the teacher.
Alogo, you the MC.
Yeah, it isn't a Sunday lender when you Banjo, can you please take us through the presentation?
Yes. Good afternoon, Program Director, afternoon, Minister, DG, as well as members of the media. We are going to be making a very short presentation to take you through and provide to you an update on the administration of the National Senior Certificate for 2024. As Minister already indicated, we are in the third week of the examination already. We commenced the exam on the 21st of October, and we are going to go through a 28-day period. At this point, we are on day 12. Today is the 12th day of the examination, and over 880,000 of our candidates have written already. All the candidates who registered for the examination have had the opportunity to write a couple of subjects. A total of 727,121 full-time candidates, as well as 155,215 part-time candidates registered to write this exam and have been writing. We can say at this point that exams have been proceeding very well. At this point, we have written 104 of the 181 question papers that have takers, in other words, that candidates have registered to write. And so we're well beyond our halfway mark, as Minister indicated, at 58% already. You would remember in the first week of the examination, we focused mainly on our language question papers, where candidates wrote English, Afrikaans, most of the African languages, including South African Sign Language, home language. And in this year, this timetable, we started with the third paper, which is actually your creative writing paper. And we want to believe that that will have an impact, certainly on the performance of our candidates, give them the opportunity to demonstrate their creativity right at the beginning of the exam. And in the first week as well, we wrote subjects like computer applications technology and information technology. These are two subjects that are dependent on, that are written electronically, and therefore we depend on electricity. A minister mentioned in her speech the collaboration that we've had with a number of stakeholders, ESCOM being one of the those that we consulted before the examinations began, and we got a good promise as to the fact that electricity will be stable because we need uninterrupted power supply during the writing of these examinations. And we can report at this point that we indeed enjoyed uninterrupted power supply, except for a few cases of power outages or technical, due to technical issues. But in that case, we will also indicate to you what we're doing with regards to those learners who possibly experienced such mishap during the exam. However, I want to indicate that most of our schools as well were prepared with backup generators as part of our contingency plans, so this was not widespread. In our second week, we continued with most of our languages, but in this case, going to the first papers, having started with paper 3s in the first week, and we did all of those, including the non-official languages. But the big one in the second week was mathematics, where I said most of our candidates, or if not all, that were registered as full-time learners would have written an examination on that day. And that was on Friday last week, where we had mathematics paper 1, mathematical literacy as well as technical mathematics paper 1. And having crossed that mark, that was a good test for the entire system. And we went on to week 3, and the paper 2s of maths literacy, and technical maths were written on Monday. So mathematics is done and dusted. We know this is one of the subjects that we also want to focus on. Our candidates are done with that, and we are well into the examinations. We are on the home front now, if we may say that. As of this morning, a number of the African languages paper 1s were also being written, and that's what brought us to the 104 papers out of 181 that candidates registered for. Minister mentioned some of the issues or incidents that took place during the writing. As you would note, in every large-scale public examination, definitely there would be incidents. But the important thing is that you have systems in place to deal with those. And we do have those protocols. As she mentioned, with regards to the protest actions at Yan Kempsdorp in the Northern Cape, as well as Limpopo, the SAPS were on site as soon as possible, and they were able to clear the blockages and allow candidates to move swiftly to their schools and to their examination venues. And therefore, there were no candidates that were prevented from writing as a result of those. The storm disruptions she has also mentioned across a number of our provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, and Western Cape. And here again, our contingency plans, together with working with the ProvJugs of provinces as well as NatJugs, assisted us in ensuring that all our measures that have been put in place actually kick in and candidates were assisted. Only in the case of Eastern Cape, in the writing of computer applications technology, did we have a situation where 319 of our candidates could not write, and that was because they were actually unable to leave their residential areas due to the floods. However, we have already scheduled an opportunity for them to write at the end of the examination, which is going to be on the 28th of November, and these candidates are being informed so that they're able to write. In a few instances, some candidates took ill, but then again, we do have protocols in place to reach our candidates wherever they are, provided they are willing to write and are able to write. And so some of them have written in hospitals, and invigilators have been sent there with the examination material, and they've been able to assist the candidates. In all, we would say that most of the examination has gone smoothly with very few administrative errors and also extremely few behavioral offenses or acts of dishonesty from our learners. We unfortunately have had a few incidences of candidates coming in to the examination room with their cell phones or with crib notes, or in the case of 1 or 2 provinces having imposters, that is other people trying to come and write for other candidates. But the system has it in such a way that there's no way you can do those things without being found out, because there are clear protocols for security measures even during writing. And therefore, the imposters were arrested, and of course, they will go through the justice system. In the Northern Cape also, we mentioned the fact that one of our candidates got injured in the hand. I think the important thing here we want to mention is not just about the specific candidate, but about the fact that we do have systems in place where, in case of emergencies or accidents, that we are able to accommodate our candidates. For instance, this one that had an injury in the hand and could not write, an emergency concession accommodation was approved for the candidate, and a scribe was approved to assist the candidate to write. So in cases where we've had this kind of emergencies, we've also been able to accommodate our candidates. So going forward to this week, which is week 3, we are halfway through this week, but we are still expecting another subjects, especially physical sciences and technical sciences, on Friday, and a couple of others before physics and technical sciences, and that would be your history, information technology, dramatic arts, hospitality, and consumer studies. By the end of this week, we would have gone past the 70% mark, and the last 2 weeks of exam we will be dealing mainly with the last 30% of the papers, as well as the rewrite opportunities for the candidates that qualify or are eligible for a rewrite. Before we come to a close, I just want to also mention that the South African Weather Services have been providing us as well with regular reports, and these weather reports are being analyzed on a daily basis and shared with all the provinces so that contingency plans are put in place to ensure that we prepare ahead of whatever we are expecting from the weather. And I think we have seen that bear fruit as well. We want to, at this point, also mention especially the support of our provincial JOCs and NATJOC, especially when it comes to inclement weather. They have always been there to support. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want to say that we are sending out our appreciation to educators, officials, stakeholders for assisting and supporting the department in every way in ensuring that we have a successful examination. We are very confident that the remaining 2.5 weeks of this exam will also proceed extremely well according to plan, as we have seen the first 2.5 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation. I'm not sure if DG has anything to add.
No, I'll come in during question time.
Great stuff. Okay. That takes us straight to question time. We have questions that Terence Kala will handle via the WhatsApp line if you receive them from our colleagues at GCIS. But we also do have an opportunity for anyone in the group, in the room. Yes, one. Okay, two. Okay, let's deal with the two questions. You mean three now? Okay, that's fine. Let's start with you.
Hi, Shakira Thebus from the Cape Argus newspaper. Minister, for the rape case, these 5 learners, did the rape occur at the school, on the school grounds? Are they all learners from the same school? And is the perpetrator a staff member of the school? And then in terms of the imposter students, you mentioned that these the imposters, they were arrested, but what then happens to the students? Are they then barred from writing their exams, and if yes, for how long? And what other consequences will they face?
All right, thank you for that. Let's just come to you. We'll end with you.
Thanks. Hi, Minister Babalo here from EWN. Just clarity on that learner that was arrested for armed robbery. Will that learner, depending on what happens to him in the court system, will he have an opportunity for another, attempt to write exams if he's out on bail, or if anything like that happens? Just clarity on that from the department. And just a separate matter, but I'm sure it's a matter that you are engaged with. The ANC study group on basic education issued a statement, urging the president to urgently, promulgate the implementation of the Bella bill, the entire bill. But my question now is, are you in any position to perhaps implement the Bella bill, except those, sections that are under embargo, so to speak? Are you in a position, can you implement the Bella bill? And are you conflicted on this matter, in the context of yesterday's protest marches in Pretoria? Thank you.
Right, thanks, Nawala. At the back, please, your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine. I'm from Equal Education Law Center, and I wanted to find out, I have a question regarding the funding and implementation of the Grade R clause in the Bella bill. It doesn't seem like the Grade R, or expansion of Grade R was accounted for in the medium-term budget policy statement. The Bella bill memorandum said that it would either be funded through the equitable share, the EIG, or another alternative funding mechanism. And
Thanks very much for that. Any other question? None. Okay, great. Minister, over to you.
Thank you. I will take some of the questions and then I'll give over to the DG. Oh, sorry. Did I do it right?
Minister, if it's possible, can you also add the provinces in which these incidents occurred? Thank you.
All right. Just on the question around the 5 learners that were raped, this took place in Mqhekezweni, which is in the Eastern Cape. The incident took place at a home that was nearby the school. It did not happen on the school premises, and we are not aware that the perpetrator is not a staff member. This is something that took place when these learners had moved into a common home that was getting nearer to so that they could be nearer to the school. And there was then a robbery where this horrific incident has happened. But this is something that is receiving attention even at a cabinet level, which Minister Dbe will talk about tomorrow. But we've been working very closely with the province to make sure that those learners are supported. But also we want to make sure that we work very closely with the criminal justice system, because what has happened to those learners is not an isolated incident, unfortunately, in our country. It happens way too often. But of course it is highlighted right now because we are absolutely needing to make sure that they are supported during this period. Then Babal was asked about this, the learner with the armed robbery, which the DG will talk to. I suppose instead of the specific case, just on principle, DG. On the Bella Act and its implementation. So the Bella Act as it stands is essentially ready for implementation with the exception of clauses 4 and 5. So as a department, we've already started the process of implementing the Bella Act because it is, of course, has been signed into law. In fact, we've started to engage provinces and to essentially roll out workshops that the department has started to roll out so that provinces are ready and are primed to be able to implement provisions of the Bella Act, with, of course, the exception of clauses 4 and 5. We are waiting on the consultation on clauses 4 and 5 is obviously a presidential led process, which we will be guided by as soon as that period has been completed. But insofar as the Bella Act, we are primed to implement. In terms of the march that happened yesterday, the gathering that took place was obviously a march that was directed to the presidency as the full custodians of this consultation process of clauses 4 and 5. And I was otherwise occupied appearing before the NCOP Select Committee on Education. Then the last question that was asked is about the expansion of grade R, which is linked to this. The big funding shifts that we're expecting to see them in February. We saw in the medium-term budget policy statement that, of course, there were not massive shifts, but in the medium-term budget, in the 5-year strategic plan, there's a full understanding that there has to be universal access to grade R, and that has to be funded. And not only just that, I think it's also important to note that we are already more than halfway through rolling out of grade R, but it has to obviously be expanded, and we have to make sure that we are covering the entire country. What is of great urgency for us now is ensuring that we are priming the education system for learners from 0 to 4. Because that's where the mass registration of early child development centers comes in. That's where the training of educators to go into the system comes in, and so that's where we are targeting we are setting our eyes on. There is recognition from Treasury that that's going to require significant investment. You'll recall that the function was moved from social development to DBE, with some limited funding. But of course, when you move a function that now has an education element to DBE, we've got an additional requirements. Now it's no longer just about ECDs and childcare. It's now about education. And so we've got to make sure that we are funding it as such. So we are expecting to see additional funding from Treasury with regards to early child development. But also early child development rollout is a key priority for the 7th administration. So we are confident and we are hopeful that the priorities that have been set out by the 7th administration will be followed by the requisite budget. DG?
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, colleagues. The rape incident, Minister has adequately responded to that. Imposter, it's dealt with in terms of the criminal procedure, but if learners are involved, in all instances, imposters have not been learners because they wouldn't be imposters anyway. Or else, if they are imposters, they would be learners who are not in the class of 2024. But if learners are involved in acts of irregularities, the worst penalty would be that they are barred from writing exams for a period of 2 years. 2 years? 3 years, yeah. For a period of 3 years. So that's the penalty there, because the question is what happens to learners. The Bella Bill, the Minister has adequately responded to that. Just for Grade R, Grade R has been part of our system for many years. The real issue there is adequacy in terms of funding. Grade R has been funded at 70% of the funding that is accorded to Grade 1. And the issue was that we need to bring parity between Grade R and the rest of the other grades. But the point made by the colleague who asked the question, it's also important. There would be Grade R learners who are outside of the public education system in terms of primary schools, and those learners ordinarily would not be covered in this case. But an overwhelming number of Grade R learners are receiving funding, but at 70%. There is no primary school in our public schooling system which does not have a Grade R. But the issue is to bring about adequacy of funding, which is what the Minister explained. The issue of incidents of where, incidents with respect to provinces that are affected, there are two categories of behavioral and administrative irregularities. Behavioral is in terms of, learners getting into exams with cell phones and certain conduct of learners which is not in compliance with our regulations. But there are administrative irregularities as well, where the learner has not been properly registered, where maybe the learner has not written the paper that they've registered for. They happen in all 9 provinces, and they are dealt with accordingly in terms of our procedures. We are collecting that data on a daily basis. Our exam line function puts together a report which is presented to me 6 o'clock in the morning every day, which I share with the Minister and Deputy Minister to bring them on board. And at the end of the administration of the entire exams, we put a report together. It goes through the National Examination and Assessment Committee, NIAC, and it then gets collated and presented to Umalusi for Umalusi's consideration before they approve the results. They need to have sight of every detail of whatever irregularity which would have taken place in every examination center. And based on that, Umalusi would then make a call whether these exams have been carried out as expected and whether certain irregularities have not compromised the integrity and the validity of the exams. So that's what happens when it comes to behavioral and administrative irregularities. Thank you.
Thanks very much, DG. Thanks very much for the responses, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the media briefing. Just to say that tomorrow in the morning at 9, it's History Paper 2, and in the afternoon it's Consumer Studies. So we still have some distance to cover. The Minister did say we're halfway. I don't know which one is the better half, but we are still looking forward to more exams. Thanks very much for your attention. If there's a need to, ministers are available for one-on-one, but otherwise we've come to the end.